Hello everyone and welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name's Rhiannon and today I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read in February. I can't believe it's taken me this long to film my February wrap up for you. It's currently the 24th of March, meaning that I will soon be filming my March wrap up, and honestly, I don't know why I've been procrastinating filming this. I have really struggled with filming wrap ups in the past for some reason. I feel like I really do need to prep myself in order to film them, and I feel like it's because I know that these videos don't tend to do as well as other videos, and trying to remember what I thought about these books when I first read them and articulate my thoughts on them in a way that makes you guys understand what I'm talking about is a lot of pressure, and so I feel like that is the main reason that I try and put these off. But then again, I get feedback from you guys saying that you really do enjoy them, so I am sorry it's taken me this long to sit down and film this wrap up. I will try and film my March wrap up on schedule for you guys so that you can watch it pretty early on in April, but saying that, I do have 9 books to talk about with you today. So without further ado, let's dive into the wrap up, because you guys know I tend to ramble on and I want to try and make this a shorter video and keep my reviews more concise. The first book I read in February was The Baron the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. In the first full week of February we have Polathon, which is a polar fantasy inspired readathon hosted by Jade over at JD Way Reads. I've taken part every year. I love the kind of mini rounds that they do as well, so when Polathon rolled around this year I knew I had to participate. This is a Russian inspired polar fantasy book that I honestly don't know how to describe to you guys. This is a very strange one to describe, but essentially we have a secluded village where people still worship the old gods, and Vasya, our main character, is born into, I guess, the ruling family of this small village, but she is unlike any of the other children. She is more comfortable being outside and talking to the spirits than she is being inside praying, and everyone kind of thinks that she is a very strange child. When an outside force comes in and threatens to get rid of the spirits that have roamed this land for centuries, Vasya steps up and tries her best to help them in any way that she can. Now, I feel like that's all I'm gonna say. I'm not sure if I've done it justice, but if I say any more, I feel like I will start to go into spoiler territory. I give this one 4 stars. I did really enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it as much as everyone else seems to have enjoyed this one. I have seen this series on BookTube for years. It's such a beloved series and I understand why. However, this was just a little bit too slow in its pacing for me. I really love the atmosphere in this book. Catherine Arden has a knack of writing such good atmosphere, so I would definitely sing its praises for that. But in terms of the plot, I feel like it was pretty slow, and then the ending was just insane and I couldn't keep up with it. So there was a bit of a kind of disconnect with me for that reason. And then I feel like this could have ended up being a standalone. I'm not sure where the second book is going to go, but it is on my TBR for March, so hopefully I can get to it soon and let you guys know what I think of it next month. But all in all, I did enjoy this one. I see why it has so much love. For me personally, it wasn't quite what I was expecting, even though I didn't really know what to expect. I loved the magic. I really enjoyed seeing our different characters interact with each other. I loved seeing the spirits in this book as well, and it definitely gave me those old Russian fairy tale vibes. But because of the pacing issue and because I just didn't connect to it quite as much as I thought I would, I have settled for a 4-star rating, which is still a very good rating. I would highly recommend this one, and as I mentioned, I am continuing on with the rest of the books in this series. The next book I read for Polathon was The City of Stardust by Georgia Summers, and unfortunately this one was a 2-star read for me. I really did not like this book, you guys, and had I not been reading it for Polathon I would have just DNF'd it, but I wanted to power through and finish it and see what I thought of it once I had finished it. But unfortunately it was just such a slog to get through. Nothing happened in this book. I don't know why people seem to love it so much. Yes, there is atmosphere in here and it's quite interesting, but honestly I didn't connect to any of the characters. Nothing happened plot wise, and I just really wasn't connected to this book from the first page, to be honest with you. In this one we follow our main character Violet Everly, and for centuries the Everly women have been disappearing because they have been taken as punishment for a curse. Their tormentor is a woman named Penelope who never ages, never gets sick, and never forgets a debt. 10 years ago, Violet's mother left to try and break the curse. However, she hasn't been seen since, and now Penelope wants the next woman she can get from this family, which is of course Violet. And it just says here, her hunt leads her into a seductive magical underworld of power-hungry scholars, fickle gods, and monsters bent on revenge, and into the path of Penelope's quiet assistant Alexander, who she knows cannot be trusted, and yet to whom she finds herself undeniably drawn. Tied to a very literal deadline, Violet will travel to the edges of the world to find her mother and the key to the city of Stardust, where the Everly story began. I couldn't care less, guys. That sounds harsh, I know, but I went into this with such high expectations. I love books about curses, the fact that there are monsters in here and scholars. I just thought it was going to be exactly my type of book. It looks like a polar fantasy as well from all of the artwork, and I was just so excited for it. And as I've said, once I started reading it, I just knew it wasn't going to be for me, and I was gutted because I had such high hopes for it. But the general consensus that I've seen for this book is the same opinion as mine. People really didn't like it. They thought it was slow. A lot of people have DNF'd it, so I'm definitely not the only one. But yeah, it's such a shame because I really thought I was going to love this one. The edition is beautiful, and I'm really sad to be getting rid of it because I'll have to get rid of it. There's no point keeping a 2-star book on my shelves. And yeah, it was just such a letdown for me. I know that Jade loved it. She gave it like 4 stars, I think, which is fantastic. But for me personally, it was such a letdown, and yeah, as I mentioned, I will be unhauling it. The next 2 books that I'm going to talk about are both part of the same series, so I'm just going to group them together. They are, of course, House of Sky and Breath and House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas. I, of course, read House of Sky and Breath first. This is the second book in the Crescent City series, and I was reading this in anticipation for the third book, which has since been released. Not gonna lie, guys, it took me quite a while to read House of Sky and Breath. This is definitely more of a filler book in terms of its moving characters from one place to the other to get them to where they need to be in order for the events of this book to occur. I still really enjoyed it. We definitely got some character development throughout, but I feel like nothing really happened until the last like 100 or so pages, which is fine. I really like the characters and I did enjoy my experience reading this one. However, this one blew me away. I do have a spoiler-free vlog that should be live on my channel by the time that this video goes live, as well as a spoiler-filled vlog that will be coming soon, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But this was just such a wild ride. I personally really loved it. I know that there are a lot of issues with this book and the series, but I'm not looking at it too critically. I went into this wanting a good time, and that's exactly what it gave me. Yes, it's not the best written book ever. Yes, it has some problems. Yes, I did have some issues with it, but overall, this book made me cry, and if a book can do that, then I know it's a good one and that it's going to stick with me for a while. So I can't give this book less than 5 stars just because of how it pulled on my emotions and how it made me feel. I'm not sure with House of Sky and Breath what I want to rate it. Realistically, it's more of a 4, but I don't want to rate any of the books in the series less than 5, which sounds really stupid. So I am going to say that both of these are 5-star books. Again, I had such an amazing time reading both. Yes, this one was slower, but it needed to be in order to set up the third book. And now that I've read both, I don't know what to do because I put this off for years, honestly. I was meant to read it last year or the year before and I just never got around to it, but I was so scared I was going to get spoiled for the third book this year that I decided to just smash it out, and I'm so glad that I did. I've been rambling so much that I haven't even told you the synopsis of this series, but essentially we follow our main character Bryce Quinlan, who is a party girl, and one day she is out drinking when something terrible occurs. A murder happens and she is at the centre of it, and it essentially just completely wrecks her life. Now, the person who was responsible for the horrific events and the murders was placed behind bars. However, 2 years later we follow Bryce and we see that she is still very much in the grieving stage when murders of the same fashion start occurring again. She is then roped into the investigation because of how close she was to the people involved the first time round, and she is ordered to find the killer. Now, she is also assigned a bodyguard named Hunt Athalar, who is a fallen angel. He is under the control of the government because he fought in a rebellion years ago that was ultimately unsuccessful, so he has been a prisoner of sorts ever since. And yeah, as I mentioned, he has been forced to work with Bryce in the first book and try and protect her as best he can. I'm not going to say too much more because I don't want to spoil it. You guys probably know what Crescent City is about by now anyway, but yeah, I read the second book and the third book in February, and I'm so happy that I finally finished off this series. The next 2 books are also part of the same series, and I wasn't going to group group them together, but do you know what? I think I will, just because it'll save me talking about it again later on. But I read An Ember in the Ashes and A Torch Against the Night in February, which are books 1 and 2 in the An Ember in the Ashes quartet. These are the gorgeous Fairy Loot editions. I bought these on a whim when they were announced, and I'm so glad that I did, because I read the first book, guys, after years of putting it off, and I fell in love with it. I really don't know how to describe this book to you. It's essentially a Middle Eastern inspired fantasy world where we have scholars who are oppressed because they tried to rise up years ago and were unsuccessful, and then we have the masks who rule over them. I will read you the synopsis though, because I feel like my description just doesn't do it justice. But it says, an orphan fighting for her family, a soldier searching for his freedom, a story burning to be told. Leia is a scholar living under the iron-fisted rule of the Martial Empire. When her brother is arrested in the dead of night for treason and her loved ones slain, Leia must go undercover as a slave at the Empire's greatest military academy in exchange for assistance from those who claim that they can save her brother from execution. The academy's finest soldier, Elias, is secretly its most unwilling, but before he can act on the desertion he plans in his heart, he is ordered to participate in a ruthless contest to choose the next Martial Emperor. When Leia and Elias's paths collide, they will find that their destinies are inescapably intertwined, and their choices will rock the future of the very empire they fear. You guys know I love a book featuring contests, so this was perfect for me. I will say I listened to the audiobook for both of these books, and that's how I plan on continuing on with the series as well, and I definitely feel like that enhanced my experience. I ended up giving these two books 5 stars. I couldn't not, because I just felt so connected to the characters. These are pretty brutal as well. I wasn't expecting that diving into them, because I thought it was more of a YA book. However, it does lean towards new adult with the content that is in here. So definitely be prepared for that, because as much as I love battles and things like that in my fantasy books, I really wasn't expecting it in this, and it really did throw me off. It is quite brutal, it is quite intense. There are a lot of torture scenes in here as well, so just be aware of that before diving in. But yeah, the narrator does a fantastic job. The way that this is written is also beautifully done. I'm so invested in the characters and what they are up to and where they're going to go from here, because the second book was just crazy. I will say I have just started reading the third book, so that will again be in next month's wrap up. But so far I'm just having an amazing time with the series. I'm so angry at myself for putting it off for this long, but very happy to have read the first 2 books now. I'm making my way through the third book, and that only leaves 1 more to go, so hopefully I can complete this series by summer, which I definitely will. Let's be honest here, I've been sucked into this world and I can't stop thinking about these books. So after reading the third book, I will definitely need to be diving into the 4th book as soon as possible, so that I can just be absorbed in the world and find out how it's all going to end, because the first book was pretty contained, but then the ending of it led on to a bigger picture. It's more political, we have a lot more at stake, and we have different key players in the game now, which is going to be very interesting. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to spoil it, but please pick this series up if you haven't already. I absolutely love it. I feel like it is a fantastic book series. We have a diverse cast of characters in here, and yeah, they all just work together so well, but we also have some characters that you genuinely hate. So yeah, I can only say good things about this. Absolutely loved it and would highly recommend if it's something that you've thought about picking up, and yeah, can only highly recommend. The next book I read was The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This is the prequel to the Hunger Games series, and honestly I'm not sure how to feel about it. I read the Hunger Games years ago when they first came out. I absolutely loved them. They are some of the best written books of all time. I will stand by that. And when this came out, I didn't initially read it because I wasn't sure how to feel about it. In this one we follow President Snow, and if you've read the Hunger Games you know that Snow is an awful character. He does some horrific things, but then again I do feel like there would be an interesting side to him. I feel like he's such an interesting character, and so I was starting to think about picking up this book, and then the film came out, so I thought, you know what, I really want to go see that, let me just pick it up, and I'm glad that I did. I will say, as I mentioned, I'm not sure what I actually think of this. I really liked it up until I was about 2/3 of the way through, and then the last third really let me down. I feel like it was very rushed. I feel like we didn't really get anywhere with it, and I feel like like Coriolanus in this just does a complete 180, where one minute we see him as a young boy struggling in the capital, and he does have a set of morals, which is how he gets into the situation that he's in, but by the end we see him completely change, and I don't know if it was believable enough for me. So the synopsis of this one says, it's the morning of the reaping that will kick off the 10th annual Hunger Games. In the capital, 18-year-old Coriolanus Snow is preparing for his one shot at glory as a mentor in the games. The once mighty House of Snow has fallen on hard times, its fate hanging on the slender chance that Coriolanus will be able to outcharm, outwit, and outmaneuver his fellow students to mentor the winning tributes. The odds are against him. He's been given the humiliating assignment of mentoring the female tribute from District 12, the lowest of the low. Their fates are now completely intertwined. Every choice Coriolanus makes could lead to favour or failure, triumph or ruin. Inside the arena, it will be a fight to the death. Outside the arena, Coriolanus starts to feel for his doomed tribute, and must weigh his need to follow the rules against his desire to survive no matter what it takes. I feel like that doesn't give too much away, but it is a pretty good description of what this book is about. I will say though, I just needed more from this book. I can't actually remember what I rated it. I feel like it's a 3-star, which honestly pains me. I think it's more of a 3.5 actually, because I did really enjoy this book. I flew through it. I once again listened to the audiobook, and that was definitely the right choice for me. But in terms of the plot and the pacing, I just wasn't sold on it, and yeah, unfortunately that meant that I couldn't give it a higher rating, which is so sad. I will say it was fun to be back in this world and in the capital specifically in this book. We did get to see some familiar characters that we are aware of from the Hunger Games books, and that was definitely something that I appreciated. I did also like to get more of an insight into Snow and his character and what came before and kind of what led up to him being the way that he was. However, as I mentioned, I wasn't sold on that. I feel like it wasn't done as well as it could have been, and I just wasn't invested enough in him and what was going on to believe that he would change that drastically. All in all though, it was a good book. I'm glad that I read it. It definitely is a good one if you want more information about the beginning of the Hunger Games and how they came to be what they are in that trilogy. I wish we would have more spin-off books, I'm not gonna lie. I'd be really interested in a book about Haymitch and Finnick. I feel like they would be really interesting characters to follow. So who knows, maybe Suzanne Collins will surprise us again in a few years down the line, but this one just missed the mark for me unfortunately, and it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Next up, I read Amari and the Great Game by B.B. Alston. I read this one specifically because I put it on my Buzzword TBR for 2024. For those of you who don't know, Buzzwordathon is a readathon hosted by Kayla over at Books and Lala. It's a year-long readathon, and for each month you need to read a book that fulfills a specific prompt. The prompt for February, if I'm remembering correctly, was to read a book with positive words, and I chose this one because of course great is a very positive word. Not only that, this is one that I've been putting off for the longest time, and the third book in the series has now been announced. We have a release date, which I'm so excited for, so I decided it was about time for me to pick this one up. In the first book, Amari and the Night Brothers, we follow our main character Amari, and at the start of the novel she is not in the best place. Her brother Quentin has gone missing and no one seems to be actively trying to find him. One day though, a briefcase is delivered to Amari's door, and it's actually a message from Quentin himself. In the briefcase there is an invitation for Amari to join the International Bureau of Supernatural Affairs, I believe it is, and she jumps at the chance knowing that this is possibly the only lead that she will ever get to find her brother. Amari faces a lot of discrimination when she first enters the bureau though. Of course she is a kind of normal kid, and there are people in this world who have known about the supernatural world their entire lives. Amari doesn't, and so she is automatically an outsider. So we do see her deal with the struggles of being different, and race is a topic in here that's handled so well. Of course I can't personally speak on the representation, but B.B. Alston himself is black. Amari is a black main character, and throughout this book and this series actually you do see themes of racism pop up, which is of course so important. Getting back to the synopsis though, essentially Amari has to compete in some trials in order to gain a place in the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs, but she will be competing against kids who have known about the Bureau their entire lives and who have been training for this moment their entire lives as well. So we do see her having to face a lot of hardships, but she is such a badass main character and you just want to root for her all the way. Of course this is the second book, so I can't tell you too much about this one. I did end up giving this one 4 stars though. I really enjoyed it. I flew through it. There are again some sort of trials in here which I'm not going to go into too much because I don't want to spoil it, but I would highly recommend this series if you haven't picked it up. Yes, it's a middle grade, but I feel like anyone from any age would enjoy this one. I personally did, and I haven't read a middle grade book in a while, so I was very much enjoying being back in this world. I'm very excited now to dive into the third book, which is coming out at some point this year. I have pre-ordered it. I will be highly anticipating it, and I will be reading it hopefully as soon as it gets here. I'm gonna try not to put it off as long as I did this one, because whilst everything's fresh in my brain, I do want to dive back into the world. But yeah, this is a fantastic series. I had a good time reading it, and I did give it 4 stars. And then the last book that I read in March wasn't actually the last book I read. I think it was the third book I read, but I don't have the physical copy anymore, so I completely forgot to mention it. But the book that I read is Lore Olympus by Rachel Smythe. This is a graphic novel series inspired by Hades and Persephone, which would normally be up my street. However, I didn't really enjoy it as much as I thought I would. I don't know if it's the fact that it's a different format. I tend to want more details, and of course in that type of format you aren't getting it, which is a shame, but as a whole I did enjoy it. I love the artwork, it's stunning. I feel like if I read the second volume I would enjoy it a lot more, but at this point in time I'm not going to, just because it's quite expensive. I did give it 3 stars though. I thought it was a solid read. I would recommend it if you do enjoy Greek mythology or you want something different, colourful, engaging to read. However, unfortunately it wasn't for me this time round, and I'm not sure if I would continue on with it. I would probably be more likely to pick it up online, so who knows, maybe I will in the future, but unfortunately it just wasn't for me. I think I've come to terms with the fact that graphic novels, comics and mangas aren't necessarily for me. I enjoy them when I pick them up, but then I'm always left wanting more because I'm so used to reading dense adult fantasy books, and of course they're not going to be anywhere near that, so it's a me problem. But I've kind of come to terms with that, and yeah, unfortunately I don't think I'll be continuing on with the series, but it's a beautiful one as I mentioned, and if you like Greek mythology or if you like a romance inspired comic graphic novel series, then you are sure to enjoy it. But there we have it guys, these are all of the books that I read in February, as well as Lore Olympus. Please let me know your thoughts on these books down in the comments if you've read any of them. Do you agree with me or do you have some different opinions? I would love to know. I really hope that I haven't rambled on too much. I know it's difficult to film a wrap up for this amount of books and try and be concise, but the fact that I've also read them quite a while ago now means that I can't give you too much details on them because I will have forgotten a lot of things that I wanted to say, which is not great. So hopefully you enjoyed it nonetheless, and as I mentioned, I will try and film my March wrap up a lot sooner in the month for you guys so that you can hear my thoughts on the books that I read. If you have made it this far through into the video and would like to let me know that you're still here, please go ahead and leave me a ring emoji down in the comments. I don't know how well you'll be able to see, but we do have a ring here on the cover of Amari and the Great Game. It's a very important part of this book, and I feel like it's a fitting emoji for this video. So if you don't have anything in particular that you would like to say, but you would like to let me know that you're still here, please go ahead and comment that now. As well as that, please don't forget to click the like button if you like this video, and the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content from me. But that is it from me today guys. Thank you once again for watching, and I will see you soon in my next video. Goodbye!